I left physics that day. In the 2 years I had left, I was able to get a major in speech communication and a minor in studio art. And if I was shifting away from the study of the dry, abstruse, and recondite, Ricky was moving in the opposite direction. Mostly healed from his gunshot wound now, still living at home, he decides he wants to become a certified public accountant. So he sets about a course of study for himself that is rigorous and scheduled down to the minute. And he follows it tirelessly for months and passes it first time out. And my dad is delighted and impressed. Oh, you can get a job at one of those accounting firms in New York. Those guys make serious scratch. But Ricky, no, not yet. While he's still living at home, he wants to start studying for the LSATs so he can study for law school and start going to law school at night while he's working as an accountant. And my dad's like, "Why? What's the rush? Take the job. See how you like it. Sock away a little guilt. You can take that test in 6 months." No, it had to be now. So Ricky starts studying for the LSATs the same way he had the other tests. I, meanwhile, had to call home and announce my curriculum change. Surprisingly, my dad didn't care at all. Water off a duck's back. It was Ricky who gave me shit. Do you have any idea how valuable a degree in physics is from the University of Virginia? Just finish it. Yeah, I don't really want to. What do you, speech communication, what are you going to do, learn how to talk? And you're going to the University of Virginia to study art, so what are you going to do when you get out? Talk and draw pictures? I don't know. And what about the Ross Bros? The Ross Bros was a joke. It was a fantasy or something. It was like we were going to go into business together, and I would be the brains, and he would be the business acumen. And we never even said what we'd do, just that it would be called the Ross Bros. And I knew he wasn't serious, but he sounded genuinely annoyed, which genuinely annoyed the fuck out of me, because what I wanted to say is, look, I'm not the one becoming an accountant and a lawyer to impress Dad. Truth was, I had no idea what I was going to do. But I felt enormously relieved that I was no longer fighting my own nature, swimming upstream anymore. And maybe because of that, an idea that had been percolating brewed. I had seen a flyer advertising an open mic at the campus pub for musicians, just to audition them, to book them into the place. But I thought I had accumulated a few humorous anecdotes and pithy observations about life on campus. Thought I'd sign up, use my time to do a stand-up comedy routine. The room was packed. My friends had the 2 tables down front. But the room was packed with all people there to see their friends perform. So when their friends weren't performing, they were just talking and having a good time, which is fine if you're up there playing music and singing. Not so good if you're doing stand-up comedy. So it's a wall of noise. I'm terrified. I didn't know what to do. I just launched into my act. And I could see my friends trying to like shoot people dirty looks and shh. And after a little while, it started to quiet down, and I'm getting a few laughs, and soon I start to notice people who aren't my friends shooting people dirty looks and shushing the people around them. And by halfway through, it's like completely quiet, and I'm getting laughs. And I remember at one point, 3 guys came in, oblivious to what was going on, in full voice and full conversation. Yeah, so anyway, Bob says that, and half the room turns around and goes, shh. And they're like, oh, what? Oh. And they stood up against the back of the wall and watched the rest of my set. And when I get off, there's a big ovation, though not, I'm sure, nearly as big as my memory of it. And my friends rip my shirt off and pour a beer over my head. Afterwards, I'm in the bathroom at the urinal, and this big, dopey frat guy comes in and is next to me. And I can tell he's one of those guys who belongs to one of those giant asshole frats that always has the big parties where all the good-looking girls go, but the guys like me aren't invited. But like, I would never go because it's filled with douchebags like him. And he turns to me and he goes, "You the guy that was just on stage?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "You were really funny, man, really." And I think, what a nice guy. You know? I wonder if there's a party at his frat later, because I could probably get in. And it was right there in that bathroom where I realized what I wanted. I wanted, okay, fuck you, I needed strangers to tell me that I was good. Might not get it, but now I tasted it, and damn it, I wanted it. I heard the stand-up scene was burgeoning in San Francisco, so after graduation, that's where I headed. Ricky, accepted now to New York Law School, had headed up into Manhattan, and he had gotten a job with what was then known as one of the Big 8 accounting firms. So during the day, he went to what I can only assume is a fairly rigorous, intense job, and then went to law school at night, and then read briefs and torts and whatever the hell else law school homework consists of every other waking hour. He lived in the West Village with a roommate, Jewish guy who worked on Wall Street, his age, named Larry. So I'm in San Francisco, trying to figure out how to catch this comedy wave that is about to break over the 80s and flood the 90s. And miraculously, at least to me, within a year, I'm doing it. I no longer have a day job. I'm supporting myself doing stand-up comedy. And there were times when I wondered if I had some sort of genetic advantage. My dad, especially when we were younger, before his business went Chapter 11 and he got a little bitter, was, well, it'll happen. He was hilarious. On holidays, like Passover and Thanksgiving, we would go to my aunt's house in Englewood. And on the way home, on the turnpike, he would do these deconstructions of the night where he would eviscerate everybody, and it was hysterical. Milton wants me to know what a grosser macher he is, so he doesn't stop with all the bubbermeitzes about all his big investments. Except he's an alter cocker. Every single one of them's for cock. He's made Gornish from every one of them put together. And meanwhile, both his kids are completely blungit. Neil's a chazer. He weighs 1,000 pounds. From the minute he walks in, he doesn't stop eating. Or hocking you a chinik with his Narishkeit. And Barbara, what a drake up. She's completely vermished and verdrate. She's got service up to her kishkas. I seriously remember laughing so hard that we'd roll down the window on the turnpike and I'd stick my head out, open my mouth, hoping air would go down my throat, because I couldn't breathe. A lot's been written and said about the preponderance of Jews in and their influences on popular culture, including comedy, especially comedy. Why that is, as they say, beyond the scope of this work. But the fact of it is undeniable. There is something about Jews, and to that end, something about Yiddish. There's actually a word for it, Yiddishkeit. It means the quality of Yiddishness. And while obviously it's so much more than just the language, I don't know if there is another language that has the rhythm, the attitude, the soul of a culture embedded right in it. And I think that's why so many Yiddish words have crossed into common English parlance, is because they're vivid and visceral, and they almost define themselves as if they were onomatopoetic. Klutz, nosh, kakamemi, schmooze, schmuck, mensch, tchotchkes, blupkis. My brother and I had a deep appreciation for the intrinsic flavor and humor of the language. Nevertheless, I was a little surprised when I would show up in New York to work the comedy scene there and stay with him or my older sister, who also lived in Manhattan. I was a little surprised to find Ricky sprinkling in more and more Yiddish phrases and words in his speech. And at first I thought it was a goof, like it was an affectation, like he was doing it ironically. But every time I came back, it was more and more. And then eventually, it was going past what we had picked up as kids. Soon he was using colorful and sage aphorisms. And at a certain point, I realized he was teaching himself the language on top of everything else he was doing.